Wisconsin Medicine, USA. His research interests are in the area of nano materials and composites, energy storage materials, biomedicine devices, and biosensors, and have research collaborations spanning different countries and continents. He has published several research articles in international journals of high repute. He has successfully completed projects funded by SCRB, CEFIRPRA, and KCPU, and has a few ongoing projects funded by biomedicine devices and biosensors. He has success with research collaborations spanning Belarus, Indo-Swedish bilateral, and India, Asian-Indian project multilateral. With his novel technologies, consulting a few industries as well. He is a recipient of several national and international awards, such as INSA Summer Research Fellowship, DST Young Scientist Award, BIRAC SRI Innovation Award, winner of All Incubation Centers Innovation Idea Contest, member of the Indian delegation to the Big Young Scientist Conclave, Commonwealth Professional Fellowship, Hungarian Scholarship Board's Short-Term Fellowship, Global Expert Award, Swedish Institute Guest Scholarship, IUPAC's Junior Researcher Award, winner of Open International Grant of NUST, Moscow, Russia, and was selected for the Japan Asia Exchange Program in Science. He is also a visiting scientist to CSIR Pretoria, South Asia. He also acts as a focal point to the European Union funding programs and facilitates Indian students, researchers, and collaborative activities. Also has the experience of as the chief operating officer of an incubation center supported by DST. His research work has been featured in the Times of India. It was interviewed by Doordarshan Chandana through their Belagu and Shubhodaya Karnataka programs. He has delivered TEDx talks and has trained several students, teachers on various occasions to skill development programs, motivational talks, academic work. So thank you very much, sir, for accepting our invitation and welcome you to this session. Now I request our principal, Dr. Kumar Kenchegowda, sir, to address the participants and hand over the session to Dr. Santosh.
Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Dr. Santosh,
Good morning.
welcome on board.
Thanks, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much.
And accepting our invitation. And a very interesting topic for the day. You know, every engineering institution or an higher education institution should turn out to be sustainable. If things has to be sustainable, it is possible only through research. Research is the only area through which the engineers, professors, and the knowledge seekers would really explore the nature and go towards the reality. So research is the only form through which one can really understand nature. So the topic for the day on how to write a proposal for research. And you being an interdisciplinary personality, we've been working together with MHRD programs and associated with many of the research works. Going forward, we would love to see that we come out with few interdisciplinary product level components such that we serve the society. So this would be an initial eye opening or to just to start with and start our journey towards the research and collaboration. So coming forward in the coming days, we would love to be in clusters and form a group and take up the research work in a thorough fashion and to bring up unity among the human beings. So with this, I would once again welcome everybody on board to make use of this opportunity to see that we develop an insight towards writing a proposal, shooting up or opening up an avenue for research. So, and research is something which any human being can get started with. Only thing is an organized way of working and developing a culture is what is really important. And I wish Santosh will really throw light on this. I'm confident, and I thank all the coordinators and the team who has been functioning very well in coordinating and interfacing all of us during the pandemic situation. Once again, thanks for the team, and welcome once again, Santosh, for giving me an opportunity to speak on few words during this, and I would not take much time. So let us continue to listen to your words and then get started. Thank you, sir. Thank you, madam. Thank
Thank,
you.
thank you so much, sir.
All the best for the program. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So, good morning, one and all present on this webinar program today. I'm glad that a lot of responses have been turned out to be successful in registering for this program, and it's been a wonderful day to be with you all and share some of my insights on writing or developing an effective research proposal.
Hello.
Before going into this topic, I just want to make sure that am I audible to you all? Hello, am I audible, sir?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So is my video also clear and the presentation visible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you so much. So going forward, before getting into the actual crux of the discussion or the presentation, I would like to share a couple of points on some of my research areas as I work in the area of multifunctional materials, which spans across energy storage, sensors, nanocoatings, and water treatment. These are applications that are originating out of this fundamental area of multifunctional materials, where we develop nanomaterials and use them for various applications as listed here. On the other hand, any research facility should comprise of some of the bare minimum facilities that are required for materials characterization, biological characterization, and for analytical characterizations. So we are fortunate enough to have all these facilities being shown here, which will definitely be able to facilitate us and many of the outsiders who come and reach out to us on a consultancy basis, so that their samples will also be characterized and they can get any kind of input as and when required. These are just photographs of some of the innovations and products that we have been developing and we have developed in the past as well. And the most important of them have been listed here, one being the hemostatic material, which actually won the Innovation Award by Bayrak Srishti way back in 2017. And the chitosan scaffold was a output of a project that was funded by KCTU, the government of Karnataka. We also have an ongoing DST funded project to develop a redox flow battery exclusively based on iron electrolytes. This is the first of its kind in the whole country that we are developing a redox flow battery based on iron. Earlier, there are one or two occasions where people have tried out vanadium redox flow batteries. However, trying out with iron is the first of its kind effort. Previously, we have also been successful in executing projects funded by DRDO and the Indo-French Center, that is CEFIPRA, to develop biosensors for the detection of Alzheimer's disease, as well as in the detection of microorganisms that are relevant for DRDOs and other defense-related applications. Recently, we also had opportunity to work on 3D printed hand splints, which we transferred the technology to Stratasys, which is a well-known 3D printing company, and they were keen on taking this technology up and scaling it up to commercialization. These are just snapshots of some of the articles that appeared in the newspaper and provided us a greater mileage in taking your research work forward. So with a short introduction about my institute, my background, and my research work, it's now time that we get into the actual crux of the topic. So today we are going to discuss about and share a few thoughts on how effective a research proposal can be and what are the strategies that we can follow in order to make it more effective and be successful in that. However, but before going into the actual concept, I would also like to make clear that before getting into the research, there are a few prerequisites that each and every one of us should be able to understand. Because these fundamental aspects or the prerequisites, which I say, are very important in order to become a successful researcher. And doing research at a later stage, having all these qualities will be of utmost importance. To begin with, I would like to share a small anecdote with you, which actually transformed me a few years ago. And I thought this anecdote would be relevant at this context as well. Albert Einstein, after winning the Nobel Prize, was invited to various places to deliver talks. He had a very interesting driver who used to sit at the back of the auditorium and listen to his talks every time Einstein delivered the talk. After about 10 to 15 lectures, the driver felt Einstein delivers the same lecture every time wherever he goes, and after listening to him about 10 to 15 times, I am now confident enough to go and deliver the same lecture on the stage instead of Einstein. The driver thought of sharing it with Einstein and did so. Einstein gladly accepted and welcomed the idea of the driver and said, next time if I am invited to deliver a talk, you go disguised as Einstein on the stage and deliver the talk. I get myself disguised as a driver and sit at the back of the auditorium and listen to you. The day came and the driver disguised himself as Einstein, went on the stage, delivered the lecture flawlessly for about 1.5 hours. At the end of the lecture, there was an audience who raised his hand indicating that he had a question. The question is not of importance to us, friends, but the moment the question was asked, remember, the person standing on the stage was Einstein's driver. He would be intelligent to some extent, if not to the on par with Einstein. So the moment the question was asked, the driver said, this is a very simple question, my dear friend, and redirected the question to Einstein, which my driver sitting at the back of the auditorium will be able to answer. And Einstein answers the question, there ends the story. The important aspect that needs to be considered here are twofold. One is the moment if somebody gets an opportunity to listen to somebody else for multiple times, it doesn't mean that the person will become an expert in the domain unless he or she really dwells himself or herself into the field and puts his hand into the domain area. Unless he or she works on the specific topic, it is difficult for the person to get a hold of the subject. On the other hand, if you're representing somebody, you should be cautious enough to maintain your status as well as keep up the standards of the person that you are representing. So considering these two aspects, which are very relevant in the field of research, we now get into the actual concept of research. Whenever people ask me, we want to pursue research and get into the field of research, I always suggest them the first and the foremost thing a researcher should be is to upgrade his knowledge from time to time. It is very important and a well-known strategy to do to be in the field of research as an active researcher is the concept of updating the knowledge from time to time. 20 years back, if you have pursued your PhD on a specific topic, it doesn't mean that it is still relevant today. Things have been changing, so people gladly say change is the only constant in this world. So considering that and taking a cue out of that statement, it is to be accepted that knowledge is the only asset that will have to be changed, that keeps on changing and gets upgraded from time to time. So considering these important aspects, we have also come across various faculty members who say they are busy with their teaching responsibilities and they hardly have time to do research. However, before getting into the field of research, I ask them only one question, whether you need to do research or you want to do research. If you are forced to do research by your college principal, by your college management, or for the sake of showcasing it in terms of points for the sake of NAC accreditation, NBA accreditation, or AICTE or UGC accreditation, then I request you, please do not get into research. The reason being, if you want to do research, it has to come from within. The reason is one. So as we go on with the various aspects of, as I said in the beginning, the prerequisites of research activities, one of the primary and important aspects that I normally suggest is to build contacts and network with people. The reason being, if you try to build contacts and network with more and more people, there are a plethora of opportunities for people to work together, come into a single platform and share ideas, develop integrated technologies, work together on multidisciplinary aspects, and subsequently come out with solutions that can be of beneficial to the society. Building contacts plays a very important role. Today, whichever institution you are based in, you may have certain limitations in terms of facilities, in terms of laboratory facilities, in terms of space, in terms of funding, etc., etc. So considering those limitations, these contacts will help you expand your horizons to a greater extent. Say, for example, I don't have a specific instrument or a facility in my institution. I may have to use a resource from a different institution which has that. If I know a person at institution, I can request that person to help me out in characterizing a sample or doing that particular study or analyzing the data whenever that person is free or on a payment basis or on a mutually agreeable terms and conditions. Only when such a situation arises, we will realize that building contacts is extremely important. Another important aspect associated with having contacts is networking. It is highly important to build networks not only within our institution, not only within our city. It is important to build our networks within the country and across the globe. The reason is, once you start expanding your horizons and build your networks to a greater extent, it becomes a habit for you that you can reach out to anybody and everybody across the globe as and when needed. Say, for example, there is an occasion where a call for proposal comes up by the funding agency and you want to put up a proposal. You have very limited activities and you have very limited facilities. However, you need to collaborate with somebody outside the city or outside the country in order to get that facility or support for your research activity. So networking becomes a very important aspect. On many occasions, the funding agencies come up with various bilateral programs which helps you in connecting with the right set of people in different countries, depending on the kind of call. It may be India, USA, India, Australia, Indo Korea, Indo Taiwan, Indo various European countries as well. So in those contexts, definitely networking with people in various countries will play a major role. Not only networking with people is important, it is also important to keep the ball rolling. Interact frequently, as I simply say, unless and until you interact with people frequently, they don't remember you. Just you write to them or reach out to them at the time of requirement and forget them after that will not help you suffice. But however, if you continue to interact with people on a regular basis, just write a casual email. Say, for example, in the situation like this, in a pandemic situation, just shoot out an email asking them how are they placed? Are they safe and secure in their environment? How is their activities going on? Are people in their country safe? And so on. This is a casual gesture that anybody can showcase. For this, you don't have to spend any money or travel abroad. You can just write an email and inquire their livelihood and the status of their health. So this kind of approach definitely creates a kind empathy and create a kind of sympathizing environment between you and the collaborator, so that whenever you reach out to them, they will have a soft corner towards you and will be ready to help you or collaborate with you in the days to come whenever there is an opportunity to collaborate and work together. Likewise, these kind of contacts and networks will play an important role in exchanging your students, or if you get an opportunity to visit that country either for a conference or for a workshop, seminar, or even on various fellowships or scholarships. You can visit, your students can go on exchange programs, you can prepare some samples, share it to them, request them to get them characterized, or try to publish a joint research article with them. And whenever there is an occasion, you can put up a joint research proposal with them. So there are multiple aspects to research before actually developing the research project. Why I'm giving you all this important information is that doing research anybody can do if he or she has a project and gets a funding. But before that, once you get the funding, you cannot sit in a room and do research activities. Now research has expanded its horizon. It's now a free bird. Its wings have to be spread across. It has to collaborate, it has to interact, and it has to gel with people across the globe in an interdisciplinary manner, so that people tend to interact with you, get to know about your research activities, and likewise approach you for their requirements, you approach them for your requirements, and so on. So in this regard, collaborations, as I said, I was just talking about building networks, contacts, and scaling it up to a bigger level. So these collaborations play an important role. As I said, putting up a joint research publication or putting up a joint research project will play a very significant role. Nowadays, in most of the committees, say for example, as part of NAC or NBA or AICTE, people don't come and ask you how many collaborations you have. What is the output of the collaboration that you have made is the major question that they are asking for. So whenever people come across as part of those committees, they do know that for the sake of marks or points, people just sign an MOU and keep it safely in the locker or in a cupboard. But what is the actual output out of collaboration? Have you interacted frequently? What are the proofs of interaction? Have you exchanged emails? Have you tried collaborating with them by sharing your samples, getting characterized, or trying to interact with them if they can help you in providing you some inputs on your research activities? Or have you jointly published a research article together, or have attempted a joint proposal building exercise? Or in some cases, maybe for student exchange programs also, these kind of activities will play a significant role. So considering a lot of opportunities in the current scenario, irrespective of whether we are in a pandemic situation or not, this pandemic situation is only for a short period of time. However, as we overcome this pandemic situation, the globe will definitely be active enough to work together and be back on track as usual as before. One of the foremost things that anybody wants to who intends to get into research is to have self-confidence. The reason being, in order to have self-confidence, you need to be confident about your own self. Confidence gradually increases as and when you progress more and more in the field of research. Probably for beginners, they may be a bit skeptical that how do I progress further in order to take up research? I've just graduated out of my university with a PhD, and will I be capable enough? Will the funding agency be considerate enough to give me sufficient funds to establish my own research group and fund me to carry out some of my research activities? Yes, definitely. There are several opportunities for beginners, especially for those who are well within the 2 years span since their PhD graduation, that they will have plenty of opportunities as well as preference, so that there are specific funding opportunities under the Department of Science and Technology, which supports through the Science and Engineering Research Board a startup research grant for early career researchers. Early career researchers, when I say, it is well within the 2 year period of you joining an institution especially an academic institution, and well within the 2 years of your joining, you should be able to put up a proposal, and subsequently it undergoes multiple levels of review. And if your idea seems to be workable, and the DST is ready to fund you, and you can have your own established facility for the next 3 years. So this will be a beginning in order to boost your confidence level to a great extent. Considering the confidence level, increase in the confidence level, it is important for every researcher to go on increasing it from time to time. There may be rejections in proposals that we submit. There may be acceptances. So whenever there is an acceptance, do not get too much boosted out. Whenever there is a rejection, do not get too disappointed. Rejections and acceptances are part and parcel of our research activity, and even the academic and the research environment should also understand the fact that getting a project accepted in spite of its great novelty and fantastic presentation is not in our hands. Finally, it depends on several factors. It may depend on the reviewer's point of view to look at your proposal. It may depend on the funding available at the funding agency, and it may also depend on the number of projects that can be funded in a specific program. So considering all these aspects, nothing is in our hands. So as it is well said in Bhagavad Gita, you do your effort and leave the rest to the Almighty. Karmanya vadikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana. If you do your responsibility, work, and job with confidence and dedication, the rest will be taken care, and you will definitely be successful enough in order to progress in the field of research. On these lines, there is one more important aspect that actually comes to my mind to share it with you is enjoying research. It is not that research should be carried out in a closed environment, in a closed door setting by the force of the principal or the management, as I said earlier. Research is a free aspect which has to be pursued out of one's own self-interest. Unless and until you enjoy your research, you enjoy your teaching, you enjoy your activities, definitely there is no way forward in order for you to progress in the field of research. As it is beautifully said in Chandogya Upanishad, Yadeva Vidya Karoti Shraddhaya Upanishada Tadeva Vire Vatram Bhavati. Any work done with knowledge, dedication, and meditative thinking will be a work of excellence, which is the meaning of this Chandogya Upanishad saying. When I say meditative thinking, research definitely needs some bit of thinking in order to come up with a novel idea. The moment you start thinking, ideas don't emerge immediately. However, your subconscious mind starts working on it, and as and when you pop up your thought process, the subconscious mind keeps working on it, and maybe about a day later or 2 days later or even a week later, at some point of time, whenever you are sleeping, whenever you're eating or driving your vehicle, the idea automatically pops up to your brain, and suddenly you realize that this is the idea that I was looking for, or this is the concept that I want to work on. So likewise, keep your minds open in order to welcome knowledge and information from all sides. As it is beautifully said in Rig Veda, let knowledge come from all sides or all areas. So considering these aspects, a researcher should always have an open mind. The reason is, unless and until you have an open mind, you cannot accept new information, you cannot collaborate with people, you cannot do multidisciplinary research activities. If I'm from a chemistry background, if I want to pursue some activity related to biology, I may not be able to do that. However, I can request one of my colleagues in the field of biology to help me out in carrying out those experiments. However, they also may suggest us to perform certain experiments as per their requirements so that they can use the sample to carry out those applications. Similarly, I can also reach out to a computer science faculty and request them to help me with building a machine learning platform or an artificial intelligence platform so that I can develop technologies, do theoretical programmings, and analyze newer concepts from time to time. Likewise, I can also consult a mechanical faculty or an electronic faculty and ask them to help me with fabricating a device or building a sensor that is relevant to the kind of application that I'm targeting. So there are enormous opportunities for any researcher, irrespective of the subject or the domain they are in. Don't be under the impression that just because one is from an engineering background, he or she will have a glorious career, or if somebody is from a basic science background, the career is not so progressing. Irrespective of the domain, it is left to the individual that how he or she pursues it and enjoys doing what they like to do. One of the foremost things which we come across in most occasions and in every institution per se is that many of the faculty members who claim that they do not have time as they are already busy with academic activities, administrative activities, preparing documentation for NAC, NBA, and so on. So they try to ask the students or tell them to come up with an idea or a project and provide them so that they can submit the projects to the funding agency. Remember, my friends, unless and until you write the project will not be of use to you. You should also remember the fact that you being a faculty, if you are unable to write your own projects, then how can you expect a student who is still pursuing his PhD come up and write a project that can go to the level of seeking a funding? It is just like in cricket match, if a batsman is not able to face any bowler at the end of the day, how can you expect a night watchman or a bowler who is normally deputed as a night watchman to come up and defend a few balls when a batsman is not able to do so? Taking the scenario and adopting it to the field of research, it is important to realize that we, being the faculty members, we being the principal investigators, have to really work on various project ideas and finally fine-tune our ideas and narrow down the topics to develop a research project based on whichever topic we want to develop the project on. The reason being, whenever we start working on the project, we get to learn a lot of things. While we do research, while we start referring to literature, articles, we get to read and understand a lot of new information. We get to write them according to our requirements, our ideas, and collectively put together in a novel way what can be done by putting multiple things together. As a fundamental aspect, we also get to learn a lot of new words. Not most of us are good in our writing or in our communication. However, this activity will definitely help us improve our vocabulary, improve our communication skills, improve our writing skills, because people may speak English effectively, but writing them in terms of pages and putting them in the form of project is a difficult task. So unless and until you practice the aspect of writing projects on your own, you will not be able to really come up with a novel idea, or you cannot expect your project to be successful at the funding agency. Because a student can only write a research project at his level and you cannot expect the student to write a research project at the level of a faculty. Until and unless the faculty, he or she himself or herself, comes up with a novel idea to put things across in the required way in order to make it more effective, provide useful inputs, create diagrams that are appealing enough, a research project cannot be successful. Needless to say, nowadays, things have become more interdisciplinary in nature because of the fact that people work in multiple domains. Gone are the days where people used to work specifically in core subject domains like physics, chemistry, biology, or mathematics, or even electronics, mechanical, computer science, and so on. However, today we are living in an era where a chemistry person also needs to know some aspects of biology. A biologist also needs to know some aspects of instrumentation, while a physicist needs to know some aspects of mathematics and engineering as well. Likewise, on the contrary, engineers also have to understand some aspects of chemistry, biology, physics, and so on. So these are complementary to each other. Unless and until we expand our horizons to learn newer subjects, as I said earlier, we have to keep our mind open so that irrespective of whichever area that we choose to work on, we have multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary projects which will benefit us to come up with a concept that will eventually go as a product for the benefit of the society and the country, and as of course on a larger scale for the benefit of the people. Unless and until we chose to work in a multidisciplinary area, it becomes very narrowed down for a person to choose or apply for projects whenever there is an opportunity or a call for proposal by the funding agency. Nowadays, most of the funding agencies come up with topics that are highly multidisciplinary in nature, and they specifically state in the guidelines saying that there has to be complementarity between the participating investigators. Say, for example, if I am from a chemistry background and I am putting up a project, my background is in chemistry. I also have to look out for a complementing person from either the chemistry background or from a biology background or from an engineering discipline, so that whatever I do is taken up by them to develop it further and subsequently come out with a technology that will be useful for the community. So considering these multidisciplinary activities, it is also important to collaborate with people and expand our horizons, as I also mentioned in the beginning. So in doing so, whenever we have a lot of opportunities for funding, applying for projects, these multidisciplinary activities will play an important role. I'm going to talk about the various aspects of the industry involvement in my coming slide, where being part of the industry network and being in the academia, putting together helps plays a major role. While doing research, it is equally important to provide our students the freedom of thought and freedom of work. Most of us who are keen on research have PhD students, master students, and B or BTech students, or even any bachelor students who are doing their minor projects or major projects in order to get their degree awarded. So in this journey, we as faculty should not have the mentality to stand behind the student and restrict his thoughts and processes, and the experiments that he or she may carry out will be very streamlined unless and until we give them the freedom of thought and work. You assign them the task and ask them how they intend to carry out. If they are, if you feel that they are going in a wrong direction, probably you can suggest them this is not the way you can try to do this, and you can suggest the means of executing the task. However, give them the freedom to execute their task without supervision. Unless and until they learn the responsibility of executing tasks without any supervision, you don't mentor a real good researcher. Probably a chemistry student who is graduating out with a PhD will only be a chemistry student and will not become a good scientist unless and until he or she learns the responsibility of working individually without any supervision. This is an important aspect. However, we have seen on many occasions where faculty members tend to distrust the student because of various reasons. However, if you come across such a situation, try to interact with your students, try to solve the problems or the difference of opinion that is existing, and give the freedom of exercise to the student so that novel ideas, novel thought processes can come up. You may have one line of thought, but the students will have multiple ways of thinking or looking at a problem. So only when the freedom of thought and work is given to the student, the project or the research activity can be successful and can come up with multiple thoughts and ideas which we wouldn't have thought in the past. While we work together in the field of research, it is important to have group meetings with our students and with our colleagues. Many a times people have the inferiority complex that if I go and present my work in front of my colleague may ridicule me or think low of me. Don't worry about those things. Whatever you know, whatever you are doing, you are good at it. That is why we say during such group meetings and to learn or come up with newer ideas. Somebody, while presenting, may present a specific result that he or she has obtained, while the other person looking at it will have a different opinion looking at it and can suggest better means of improvising the research output, and subsequently the research result, which can go to a journal with an impact factor of 1 or 2, can definitely scale up to much higher impact factor levels and subsequently improve your research activities. So those are the times. Probably you can have or schedule meetings once in a week as a fixed day. So irrespective of whether somebody is there or not, you don't worry about that. You can carry out and streamline your activities so that the group meetings go on from time to time on a regular basis, and you too get an update of what your students are doing, how they are doing, whether they are on the right track or not, and how you can nurture them, guide them, and supervise them, mentor them in the course of research activities. Attending conferences, seminars, and workshops also play a very important and significant role in the field of research. It is important to attend these programs because conferences are places where new ideas, thought processes, and new people are met. We make good friends during conferences. However, although it is well said that conferences provide us new ideas, a lot of brainstorming can happen outside the conference hall, where we come across newer people, get to know, make new friends, and also try to identify collaborators who can provide us inputs and work together, meeting our frequency levels and thought processes. Accidentally, we may come across a new person who may be working in a similar line or in a complementary area that can help us take our research work to the next level. So likewise, there'll be stalls and presentations by industry people as well. So this occasion will also be an important platform to know what new instruments or technologies have come up to the market in terms of supporting our research activities, and what instruments can we buy as part of a new funding project that we intend to apply for. So not only you as a faculty attending conferences is good, but you should also be able to support your students and allow them to attend conferences and seminars and make presentations during those occasions. It is equally important to facilitate student conferences and seminars, and they're attending these programs because of the fact that while they go and attend the conferences, they come up with newer ideas, much brighter than what we think we have, and subsequently also try to establish their wings, their new contacts, and also be able to suggest us that you have is present place or in a Y place. And similarly, some X person is carrying out which is similar to us, them and so on. And sometimes things which are not visible to us, the students will be able to pick up from those discussions and by the displays of the posters and presentations that are made as part of the conference. So this is just an occasion or a platform through which we get to interact with a lot of people from different domains, different subject areas, different industries, different parts of the world, and hence that is an opportunity to strengthen our research activities from time to time. Going from fundamentals to application is an important aspect of any research activity. One may think that I am working only in the fundamental area of science or engineering, which transforming it into an application domain is highly difficult. You don't have to really worry about whether you only have to work on the fundamental aspect as well as on the application aspect. If you are working on the fundamental aspect of it, identify a suitable technologist or an engineering colleague who can support you transform that fundamental knowledge into a technological solution in the form of a device or a product that can eventually go into the market or transform it into a product. I've given you a simple example of nanotechnology. The fundamental applications of nanotechnology uses various synthetic methods of developing nanomaterials, nanoparticles, nanocomposites, and so on. And this has been a buzzword over the past 20 years across the globe. and several billions of dollars have been pumped into this area in order to boost this domain and come up with technologies. But unfortunately, not really many technologies have evolved out of this technology, in spite of it having a lot of opportunity and the platform to scale up to a much bigger level. Considering the importance of this domain, I may synthesize and characterize the materials in my laboratory. However, transforming that information to a technological level is up to our collaborative efforts and subsequently interacting with a few relevant stakeholders who can help us provide inputs in transforming this fundamental material into a technological material. To give you a simple example, I was actually going through a literature article about 6 months back, and I came across some of the new material, semiconductor materials that have been introduced into the field of research, and people have just started working on them through computational modes, computational modeling and simulation. While looking at that, I was wondering if they're so good at exhibiting semiconductor properties, why don't I use them and test it for water treatment applications? I adopted that idea and started. I told my students, discussed with my students, and started working on developing those materials, and subsequently came up with a material which exhibited fantastic water treatment possibilities and degraded the dyes and uh, emerging pollutants in a matter of few minutes. Considering the possibilities of such multidisciplinary domains, adopting newer knowledge, new information, new ideas from a different article, and if I can incorporate it into my research area, why not you people can do while trying to adopt this kind of a strategy into your own research and expand your domain knowledge and horizons for various aspects. We all have in our institutions a number of opportunities and occasions where students in the final year come up to us for asking for projects. Students in the masters and PhDs come up to us asking for opportunities, platforms, fellowships, and so on. Give them a small set of activity, ask them to come back with some amount of information, and you will realize the amount of effort, the amount of interest that they have put in order to prove themselves right before you and grab that opportunity that is available. So, considering these aspects, as I was telling you, connecting with the industry becomes an important aspect. Connecting with the industry is not only the job of the placement officer in the institution, it is the job and responsibility of every researcher, every academician, every teacher that whoever is interested in the field of research in order to connect with the industry and seek industrial collaboration. Unless and until the industry is interested in my research activity, whatever I do in my research lab and publish papers will be of no use. I may be able to publish hundreds of thousands of papers, but ultimately, if that doesn't get realized into the actual practical field or in the industry, then whatever research I do may not be really helpful. It will only speak about the numbers that I have published and not really the contributions that I can make into the field of research. Many a times we do not understand that industries will also have some of the smallest problems that we think are highly negligible and ignorant. When we talk to those industry people, we realize that they will not be in a position to solve some of the most simplest of the problems that they come across in their day-to-day activities. When we interact with them, we will be able to identify those problems and suggest them with suitable solutions that using them, they will be able to overcome those possibilities. One such idea, if it becomes successful and they're happy about your suggestions, you will definitely be a technical advisor to the industry, and a lot of problems that the industries are facing will uh, come up to you in order to by requesting you to provide solutions from time to time. It is not that you start working with one industry and subsequently grow with multiple industries. So as you interact with one industry, the word of mouth message spreads across from industry to industry and from technologies to technologies, and subsequently you can definitely come up and try to solve those industrial problems. Unless and until there is industry academia interaction, and nowadays even various funding agencies also prefer to have industrial collaborations in academic projects. so that whatever the technologies or the projects, research projects that academicians perform will have to have an industrial component embedded into it, so that the amount of funding that is being given to the researcher will have a meaningful end rather than just by publishing papers and increasing the numbers. Most of us have a difficulty in balancing the work and life in our day-to-day life. I've come across many people saying that uh, I'll only be able to concentrate between 9 to 5 during the college hours or the hours, wherein if I go home, I'll not be able to concentrate more because of my issues, problems associated with it. To be very frank, who doesn't have a problem? Of us, various kinds of problems in our home, in our workplace, in our neighboring problems. Or problems and doing what we like to do is an important aspect. Unless and until we try to overcome these problems and focus on what we intend to do, what we enjoy doing, these problems continue to haunt us. Remember, my friends, research is not an activity that you do between only 9 to 5. Researchers have to spend extra hours beyond 5 o'clock or before 9 o'clock, so that they try to work on a project, they try to correct manuscripts given by the students, they come up with ideas, they refer a lot of research articles from the literature, and try to come up with a lot of activities that needs extra effort between 9 and 5. If you are willing to work between 9 and 5, yes, it's well and good. However, an extra effort beyond 9 to 5 will definitely add on to increasing the efficiency of activities. And until you dedicate yourself beyond, the amount of success will be very minimal. I don't say that people who work or carry out research between 9 to 5 will not be successful. However, as I said, it is only a minimum effort that one can put in between 9 and 5. There are a lot of activities and work responsibilities that are assigned to you between 9 and 5. You may have to teach, you may have to do administration, you may have to keep track of your students, you may have to evaluate their workbooks, answer sheets, and so on, and also perform activities for NAC, NBA, or even administrative activities as well. However, keeping them aside, in addition to 9 to 5, if you can put in an extra effort of 2 to 3 hours additionally, at least not every day, on holidays or even during vacations, and sometimes during the weekdays as well, whenever there is a need or whenever there is a specific deadline for a research project, these kind of inputs will definitely be helpful to you in order to scale up and enhance the quality of your research activity over time to time. While you grow in the field of research, it is equally important for you to allow your students and colleagues to equally grow with you. If you if you take 10 steps ahead, you can try to help your colleagues and students at least come down 4 to 5 steps, so that they will also be happy and the factor of jealousy doesn't creep in your surroundings. Unless and until you have a conducive environment in your surrounding, carrying out research activity to the level at which you actually want to perform is difficult. I'm not saying that you always have to involve every colleague of yours into your activity. Identify 1, 2, or 3 people, whoever is relevant to the activity that you are intended to carry out. Try to involve them, work with them together, so that you also cultivate the habit of working together in groups, and subsequently help your colleagues to walk a few steps with you, so that they will also feel happy and will be able to support you and your activities in whatever way you need. That is the kind of conducive environment that one should be able to build in a suitable research environment in order to progress in the field of research. While we do all these activities and start working on developing research projects, it is important to understand that whatever we are trying to propose has to be in a continuous process. That is why most of the funding agencies prefer that any principal investigator or researcher who intends to apply for a project should already have carried out some preliminary activity, so that the funding agency and and the reviewers understand the fact that the person is serious enough in order to execute this task, and also gets a feeling that this is a executable task and not something that is being proposed out of the blue. Only feasible tasks that are relevant, that are executable within the given span of 2 to 3 years of the research project will have to be proposed. Also, it is important to understand and realize the fact that if you are trying to propose a project for a period of 3 years, do not propose the project which can go beyond 3 years, just to showcase that you are putting extra effort to complete the project well within 3 years, even if it takes beyond 3 years. That will not help you in any way. Always try to propose projects that can be completed well within 2.5 years if the project is aimed at 3 years. Keeping a 6 month buffer period for lockdowns, pandemics, or even holidays, festivals, timelines where instrumental breakdowns, failures due to unprecedented situations, and so on. Keeping all these aspects in mind, 6 months is a good buffer period that you and your student can work together and try to complete the project successfully, so that in a span of given set of 3 years timeline, you can successfully and happily complete the project without any obstacles. And also, I've come across several researchers who intend to propose several objectives as part of the research project, trying to showcase that they are trying to do so many activities in the project. This is not actually required. If you are trying to propose a project for a period of 3 years, 3 objectives should be good enough in order to justify what you intend to do. If your objectives are too vague and too many, then the reviewer and the funding agency gets a feeling that the researcher hasn't done sufficient homework on this particular domain, and executing multiple things uh, uh, is not going to happen within the span of 3 years. There may be several activities that you may have to perform as part of the experimental process. However, them and putting art which understand trying to write and come up with shorter points. That's why in research, brevity is a virtue. And until you know the art of putting things, while we were developing that proposal, we realized that since our concept was more on development of hydrophobic coatings for masks, there were hardly very few literature using which we could develop the proposal. So only keeping the crux of the concept in mind, we tried to come up with our own ideas, our own points, giving it a continuity so that any reader who reads through the proposal will have a feeling that this activity can definitely be performed irrespective of how much our amount of literature is available or not. The reviewer and the funding agency also gets a feeling that there is sufficient amount of homework done by the investigator or the PI, and with the amount of confidence that he has exhibited in terms of novelty, in terms of the objectives and the expected outcomes, this project is definitely going to be successful. That is the kind of attitude and projections that you need to bring in onto the project while developing the research project and submitting it to a funding agency. There are several funding opportunities, and the one of the most important things that a researcher should be able to do is keep frequently looking at those funding agency websites, so that whenever there is a new call for proposal, those funding agencies will be able to put up those advertisements and guidelines in their websites. And unless and until you frequently visit them on a daily basis, or once in 2 days or once in 3 days, you will not be able to get to know what new calls for funding are coming up. Nobody will call you and email you saying that there is a new play for it. So unless and until you yourself volunteer to reach out to those funding agencies and their websites in order to explore various available funding opportunities, it will be difficult for any researcher to explore multiple opportunities and apply for suitable funding. Probably considering the time duration that was given to me, I'll keep my session open. However, will be able to answer any questions and clarify your doubts if you have any. Madam, over to you. Hello? Hello? Madam?
ರಾಕೇಶ್ ಇದು ಸರ್ದಾಗೋಯ್ತು. ಔಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಥ್ಯಾಂಕ್ಸ್.
Hello?
ಹಲೋ, ರಾಕೇಶ್. Hello. Yes, sir. I, Professor Chandrama, convener of
Hello.
IIC.
Madam, am I audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Hello? Give them clarification.
Have any queries, you please post your queries in the comments box. Sir will answer shortly. Okay. So I, Professor Chandrama, convener of IIC, take this opportunity to take up thanks for our Dr. Santosh sir. Sir, your talk was informative and explained in detail how to compute the research and how to apply for the funding from the institutions, and also you gave us very useful information to all of us. Thank you very much, sir. And no event will be successful until there is a support from management. On behalf of IIC team Vkit, I take this opportunity to wholeheartedly thank the JES management for your support and commitment in conducting this webinar. I'd like to thank our beloved principal, Dr. Kumar Kenchegowda sir, and Vice Principal Dr. D.V. Chandrasekhar sir for supporting and this webinar successfully. I thank all the HODs of various departments and staff members of Vkit in supporting us. And finally, I thank all the participants for your participation and patience listening, without whom the event would not have been successful. Thank you, one and all. Thank you very much. If you have any queries, you please post your queries in the chat box, and sir will answer. And your certificates will be sent. We will send the link now. You please fill up your email IDs and we will send the certificates to that. Okay. Thank you. If you have any question, please, sir is waiting. Sir?
Yes, madam.
Yeah. There is a question from audience. Generally.
Normally, projects are awarded within a prescribed budget, preferably in the span of less than 45 lakhs would be an ideal budget for a startup research grant. And the PI who is intending to submit a project also need to check the guidelines of the specific call, wherein if there is any cap on the maximum funding that one will be able to apply, probably the funding agency will intimate in the guidelines given.
Okay. I think
30 to 45 lakhs is an ideal budget that one can go.
One more question, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Is there any criteria that the particular area the research should be there where they have to apply for funds?
There is no specific area as such. From time to time, research topics keep changing from topics to topics. Today, whichever topics are considered as hot topics,
ಅಷ್ಟೇ ಅನ್ಸುತ್ತೆ. Yes, sir. Sir, if
One more question, sir. Is it necessary to have certain
Relevance,
publication in the proposed project?
5 years down the line, or whichever topics that were relevant 5 years back are not relevant today. So people have to realize the fact that
So they have to work on the recent project and they have to publish.
yes, sir. If any questions are there, we will get back to you in personally to your mail IDs. Thank you, audience. Thank you all. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.